Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker here. Redbeard and I and the rest of the shout out team pray you are having an amazing, incredible, and wonderful day. Hey, do you have shameless plugs for events happening in your area? Let us know. We're all about getting the good word out. Check out the show notes for opportunities to have fun in an alcohol, drug, and judgment-free zone. Hey, wow. Thanks to you anonymous donors this week for hitting up the donate link at shoutoutfromthepit.com. We're humbled by your generosity. $1 here and $1 there helps with business cards, equipment upgrades, technology, and platform fees. Friends, all we desire to do is get hope and inspiration to the hurting. Your donations helps us to do just that. Hit the donate link on shoutoutfromthepit.com and drop $1 for the cause. And if you would like to support the show with business cards, equipment, technology, or gift certificates or items for our guest, please let us know on the contact page or call or text 501-613-8915. And not a single dollar goes to any member of the shout out team. We are all just volunteers and grateful to serve. Thanks for helping us spread hope, love, and inspiration. Speaking of 501-613-8915, that's an unmonitored number where you can leave voice messages and text. Stop what you're doing right now and call or text 501-613-8915 and leave us some inspirational, motivational messages. We'll give you a shout out and include your message on the podcast. That number again is 501-613-8915. Looking forward to getting pumped up with your shout out. Hey, we don't want you to miss any of our episodes, so be sure to sign up at shoutoutfromthepit.com, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere you listen to the show. Like, join, and share the hope, love, and inspiration with the masses. You'll get Diane's missives full of awesome tools and encouragement, daily insights from the shout-out team, and episodes designed to edutain as you trudge the road to happy destiny. As always, it's for free and for fun. And we love your feedback. Y'all sincerely bless us and let us know we're on the right track. Please keep sending those suggestions on how we can improve your show. This is the People's Show, your show, a platform where your message can be heard and shared with people looking for hope and good news. We want to share your story, how you overcame your hurt, habit, or hang up, and what you do to maintain a healthy, happy life today. Contact us at shoutoutfromthepit.com. We're looking forward to meeting you and sharing your story with us and the world. And be sure to join our growing family of optimistic folks on Facebook. The Shout Out team thrives on positive, optimistic, humorous, and inspirational memes, good news stories, and anything that brightens the day and shares hope. Hey, humble reminder. These raw and uncensored recovery episodes are about real people with real struggles and real solutions. And now, on with the show. How's my hair?
Looks great.
My hair's okay. Okay. All right. Hey, shout out, folks. It's Bob the Old Rucker coming at you raw and uncensored. And as always, only God knows what's going to happen on this show. Welcome to Shout Out from the Pit, where the host needs a therapist and the guests are awesome. I'm the host and Redbeard, my friend. Partner and producer is the brains behind the scenes. The show today is with my friend and tribe brother and no stranger to the podcast, Charlie. Charlie, give a shout out.
Hey, everybody. I am Charlie Newth, and I am an alcoholic.
There you go. Boom. Hey, thanks for hanging today with me, man, Charlie. I know that we've been talking about doing a show like this for a minute, so we'll see where this goes. But just to let the audience know up front, this isn't an experience, strength, and hope type of show. We're going to do that later with Charlie. Today is kind of topical. We're going to be bouncing around with talking about depression, anxieties, and I have no questions. This is just Bob and Charlie having a chat. I do wish that we would have been able to record our previous conversations that we've had over the phone. So I don't know if we're going to be able to remember any of that stuff because I didn't make any notes on this. We're shooting from the hip. That's totally cool. I just haven't done it that way. So we'll see what happens. But this happened on a previous show I was doing with some tribe guys. I looked up some stats on depression and suicide-related depression. That got me depressed. So I'm not going to use any numbers. I hate numbers anyway. But what wasn't surprising to me, but the largest categories, and they're not necessarily in this order, Charlie, as I went through and I was reading all this stuff. Depression-related stats, they're staggering. But category-wise, there are groups that have suicided because of antidepressants. That was kind of new to me. I do have a little history there myself. But then other categories are veterans, Native Americans, teens. These are the ones that there are enough suicide-related depression numbers that they actually made a category for them. So again, Native Americans, teens, LGBT, first responders, seniors, adolescents. You know what it came down to as I read this, brother? I was just like, no one is immune to depression-related suicide. And it's just, and as I'm reading again, it kind of brought me down a little bit because this isn't one of those uplifting type of subjects, but it's a necessary subject because a lot of people just seem to avoid it for a lot of reasons. I don't know if we just want to start off with that or what? Who knows where the show's going to go? The spirit's in charge, right? So where do we kick off, Charlie? What's on your mind?
Well, with what you just shared there, I think the reason a lot of people shy away from this topic, and it's one of the things I was talking about with somebody this morning, it's kind of embarrassing that it's embarrassing to me to know that I go through these things that I go through, that I treat myself the way I treat myself, and I'm just not proud of it. And so it is difficult to talk about it. But I'm willing to come here tonight and be 100 as honest as I can possibly be, put my pride and my ego aside, and tell the honest to God truth to the best of my ability about how this affects me in order to possibly help somebody else.
Yeah.
And I also have learned that if I do that and I help somebody else, I get the help I need in return.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always that magic when we feel like we're doing, and we never felt that, pre-recovery. We never thought that we could actually be of any use to anybody. It's like we just typical people with depression getting up in the morning wondering why we're alive another day, and then finding out in our own journeys that, hey, we can be of help to somebody. That just sounds so weird, but we've discovered in our journeys that it's true, and we just come right out and and listen, I know there's a setting for it. I'm a former businessman. I'm retired. I've worked for, I worked for the government. I had my own business and just different things. You're self-made. You have a few businesses. It's not like you're going to go to your clients or just jump out somewhere and say, hey, I'm depressed. I'm here to do a job. It's just like there's a setting for it. How do you, how do you broach when you identify somebody, whether you're on the job or anywhere, but, if you sense that somebody's going through a depression mode or whatever, what spidey sense do you have that tells you that? How do you know?
Well, excuse me. I think, I can't think of the term, but, when somebody's afflicted with something, it's real easy for them to see it in somebody else. And so, I see people that work with me that have problems with depression. And when they do, I kind of jump into this mode where I want to help them. I want to be able to make it go away. But I know from my past experiences that it really doesn't matter a whole lot what I say to them if I'm just trying to encourage them or things like that. That tends to be irrelevant. What people seem to understand and what seems to help them is when I can tell them, kind of like you did with me on the phone, what I went through, and then they can relate to it. And so I'm not preaching to them. I'm not telling them what they should or shouldn't do. I'm telling them how I've been affected and what I do to try to overcome it. And if they get it, and oftentimes they do, you know. I had a situation not long ago. One of the guys, he got in his feelings, and I'm looking over, and he's overloading his truck up, and he's leaving. And so I go over and I asked him, I said, hey man, what's going on? He said, y'all don't want me here. I know you don't, so I'm just going to leave. And so I got a little brutal honest with him. I said, look, man, I'm not asking you to leave, but I'm not going to beg you to stay. And he started looking at me and listening. I said, why don't we just go up here and have a Mountain Dew? We went up in the shop, we opened a Mountain Dew, and we just talked. And now that I'm talking to you, I can realize that what made a difference in him that day is he saw that I cared. People don't remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel.
That's right.
And when we finished that Mountain Dew, he was more than happy to go back to work. And, you know, and he still has episodes, you know, it didn't resolve his depression, but it got him through that day.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of to caveat on that in the sense of afflictions or labels that we have, especially addicts and alcoholics. You know, Ralph uses this example, and I'm going to go somewhere with this. If you have a drunken horse thief and you take away the alcohol, what do you have?
A horse thief. Right.
Still have a horse thief until they work on their character defects. Well, in a similar sense, when somebody is already depressed and they're an alcoholic, so they, you know, we remove the alcohol or the drugs, but they're still a depressed person. And the reason I even thought of this at this moment was because there's another fellow that we know, and of course, breaking his anonymity, and this thing would be called gossiping, and he'd probably smoke me for it. So we're not going to go there. But he said to me, you know, I don't think that I'm really a valuable member to the tribe. And that kind of threw me off, man, because he's been hanging with us for some time, you know. And so rather than just jump into, you know, oh, that's not true, you know, no way, you know, I just like, what makes you say that? And I guess I expected this rhetorical answer was, well, I just don't feel like I fit in. And I was like, do you think any of the guys ever just totally feel like they fit in? I mean, really, look at any of the guys. And I went through some names, and I was like, dude, we are a lot, you know, that would not, a group that would not normally hang out together. I mean, we're also very different, but the commonality is that we're in a fight for our lives. And this program has taught us that love and tolerance is our code, you know, principles before personalities. So, yeah, you are part of the tribe. And those feelings you have, I guess it's okay to have them, but you got to know that none of us are looking at you going, why are you part of this tribe? You know, it's just, you know, and he needed to kind of maybe just hear that for, I don't know what the word is, some kind of edification or something, but it's not like I don't feel that myself. You know, I may be a podcast host. That doesn't mean that I don't struggle just like the next guy or gal. You know, there's times when I wake up and I just don't feel like I fit in, you know, and I don't even know why sometimes. You know, we talked about that. Where do these things come from? I don't know. I don't have a clue, but they do. And you know, we can talk about that because we have some other thoughts, and maybe some of the audience members can identify, and maybe some of them will be kind of like weirded out by it. But I think it's something we'll talk about if it comes up, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'll start off too a little bit with kind of how my depression has been throughout my life, because I didn't always suffer from depression. I probably was in my mid 30s before it really started becoming something that I was aware of that was happening. And I felt like I needed to do something about it because I wasn't as happy as I was previously in my life. Growing up, I was one of the happiest people I know, you know, and still can be today most days until this depression comes on me like it does from time to time. And so, but I also was drinking heavily and doing a lot of drugs at this time. So I was really contributing the depression to that. And it may very well be. Okay. So I was buying self-help books. I even went to a psychiatrist. I got put on multiple different medications, and I'm doing all these things to try to overcome the depression. Deep down, I knew that until I stopped drinking and doing all the drugs, it wasn't going to go away, because I really felt like that's what brought the depression on me. And then I got sober, and I was sober for 2 years, and I was on what they call in sobriety the pink cloud for those 2 years, and I didn't have anything wrong. And right at my 2-year sobriety date, I had an episode of depression, and I was in this building with a bunch of people, probably 100 people that I know and love, and they know and love me, and I couldn't stand to be there. And I'm looking at the door. I had some service work I was supposed to be doing, so I took care of my duties. But as soon as I was done, I was hiding behind this pillar, and I was looking for an opportunity to get out the door. I was waiting for a clear enough path that I could get out the door and nobody would stop me or say anything to me. And that moment came, and I just took that. I just jetted towards the door, and I got outside, and I walked to my car. I closed the door, and I just took a deep breath, and I was like, oh, I got to get out of here. And there was a knock at my window, and it was you guys. And you said, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know, but I got to get out of here. That was what I consider my real first bout of depression. And I was 46 years old. And I've had many bouts since then. But I just wanted to kind of give you a history of what my life was like, and where it where this battle started. And it is a battle. And anybody out there that's going through depression, please don't be so hard on yourself. You're fighting a battle that's too big for you to win. I can't defeat it on my own. I know that. I've tried every possible way, just like I did with my addiction. I tried every possible way that I could think of to stop doing the things I was doing, to stop drinking and drugging, and nothing worked. And as I fight this depression, I'm trying every possible way that I can to defeat it, and nothing's working. Now, what caused me to overcome my addiction? I surrendered, and I didn't even know I was surrendering. Okay. So I can only look back now and see that I was surrendering. So how did that surrender look? What did it look like at the time? Well, at the time, I thought I was being a coward. And so I decided that I was going to drink and drug myself to death because I was too afraid to commit suicide. And I thought I'll just hammer down on the drugs and alcohol. And as long as I can make it till my son's 21, because that's how old I was when my dad passed away, he'll be okay and I can check out and I won't have to live my life like this no more. And I don't know how long it was, but shortly after that, I ended up in a straitjacket on the psych ward at the Baptist Hospital. Looking back at my life, that moment, what I thought was a coward's way out was me surrendering because I quit fighting it. That's what I can see today. I quit fighting the drugs and alcohol. I just gave up. I ceased fighting. And that is the spiritual surrender that it took. And I got in the hospital, and when they finally let me out of the straitjacket, I met with the doctor the next day. And for the first time in my life, I was honest with a medical professional. And I told him, I said, look, man, I'm not crazy. I'm not suicidal. I got a problem with drugs and alcohol. I can't stop using it. I need help. Maybe that's what I need to do now because, we haven't really talked about this yet, but I'm fresh off a week-long bout of depression. And maybe I need to quit fighting it because I know like I just explained, I can't do this. I can't beat this on my own. And I've been trying, and I've tried so many things. And here I am still going through it, So I'm optimistic that this podcast and talking with Bob, because when we talked on the phone, we realized that we talked the same talk.
Yeah.
I mean, we were telling each other stories. And so I believe this is a step in that direction to surrender, where I'm going to quit trying to fight it and quit trying to overcome it on my own and just give up and let God have it. And, I do that through whatever. I don't know what's coming. I have no idea, but I'm very optimistic that I am on the cusp of overcoming this. So I don't want to try to blow smoke up anybody's butt. I felt this way. Every time I come out of depression, I feel like I learned the lesson I need to learn to not ever go back into that again.
Right.
I feel like, man, I know what I did. I guess only time will tell, if I've learned my lesson or not.
You had mentioned growing up being happy. So, and one of the categories was adolescence. So, I personally, I was raised in a pretty dysfunctional household, but I never heard the word depression. I'm not even sure if that was a word they used in the 60s, depression. I don't know. And so, of course I had happy moments, and I had, my whole life wasn't doom and gloom. I wasn't like a Hebrew slave building a pyramid or something. I had good moments. It wasn't until later in my 20s when I started getting these, I just don't want to get out of bed. And I couldn't understand that, because that's not something that, a lot of teenagers and teens, whatever, are known for sleeping in. I was really not one to ever sleep in, man. I got up and I got to go do something. Now, maybe that's ADHD related or ADD or I don't know. They didn't have those diagnoses when I was a kid. But I was always up to something. And, my biggest thing, I'm the Old Rucker. But even as a kid, I would always grab, a knapsack, they called them then, and I'd head off for the trails, no matter what part of the country we lived in. And that was my happy place. But when I got into the Army, I was going through the gates at this particular post, and I woke up in the emergency room. The last thing I remember was the, showing the MP my ID. And, I'm in military uniform in a military vehicle, and I'm in the emergency room, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? And they said, you had a panic attack. And so I'm in denial at that point. No way, I'm a hardcore soldier. I didn't have any panic attack. They got me where I was regular breathing, and then I jet. I didn't refuse to do any follow up or anything like that. And because, it's not cool. What if that got back to my command, which of course it did. And, there's a lot of associated conversations with that. That's not necessary for this episode. But what was important is that I couldn't get that out of my mind. What happened? So years go by, and of course I get into recovery, and I'm still not addressing depression. It just never came up. I'd heard about it, but it was a label that didn't apply to me. I'm an alcoholic. That's my problem. It wasn't until almost 30 years later, when I'm getting out of the Army, where they send you to all of these civilian analysts, physical, mental. It was in this, they sent me to a shrink, and I'm like, what the heck's that? Now, I've been to anger management, but I'd never been to a shrink. And he asked what I've learned later were triggering questions that nobody had ever asked me before. And I had a episode there where I left. I wasn't going to entertain this. I didn't know this guy, but he said some things that triggered these emotions. And then I got a letter saying that I am diagnosed. I just had it here. Let me pull it back up. With major depressive disorder. And I'm like, what is that? And how dare they put a label on me? I'm still trying to be the man, right? And it says it's commonly referred to as depression. Don't think for a moment that I wasn't pissed off when I got that letter. It is one of the most common mental disorders. Now I'm really pissed. Oh, so it's not just a label, it's a mental disorder. You telling me I have a mental disorder? Yeah. And in the United States, it's characterized by a persistently depressed mood and loss of interest in the things you enjoy. I couldn't deny that, when I looked it up. Now, of course, the letter didn't say that. What the letter said was, it's highly recommended that you get, continued therapy and whatever. And I was like, no, I didn't. I did go later, but not immediately. So there's a great deal more on this. I'm not going to read it. Hey, folks, you can look it up yourself. Depression, major depression disorder, whatever. But it had, it answered a lot of questions. And it was almost a relief. I didn't want to admit it, but it was almost a relief to have that label. Like, oh, there is a reason why I'm not enthusiastic anymore. And I've lost my appetite for life. Why I had these, what we call suicide ideations, which is, again, I'm in the veteran category. And so getting that label and then being in recovery and via osmosis through brothers in the tribe and recovery groups talking about depression, I was willing to go and find out more. I'd already been locked up. I'd already been in the rubber room. All that stuff had happened, but I was never, and you used the word earlier, and that's what struck me to go down this road. You quit fighting. You surrendered. Once I was able to do that, and I wasn't able to do it overnight, but once I was able to do that, like, okay, I've heard you guys say it's okay. And so if I have mad respect for you guys anyway, and then you come out and say it's okay to surrender to depression, well, then that tells me it's okay for me. So I still was kind of a lot reluctant to share it with, the tribe, but I did go get therapy. I went to the hospital and I went through the PTSD program, and what an awakening. And it changed so much. But here's, and I just want to say one more thing before I quit hijacking this conversation. In the early 2000s, I got locked up for just stupidity. And then I was command directed to go see a therapist. And I non-reluctantly, I didn't even care. I took the psychotropes that they gave me. And it wasn't until I did this little research before you and I got together today that's a category, is antidepressant related suicides. So my wife says to me, "You're very weird. What's going on?" Of course, I didn't want to tell her I was taking these psychotropes, but she sees it and I must be weird. And I didn't know I was weird. So I gave her the bottle and my wife, she's like, really, she is all over research. So she gets into this research and she's like, the side effects of this drug, one of the serious side effects is suicide. Of course, I wouldn't know that. I didn't look it up and nobody told me that. They just gave me the drugs to take them. Are you taking anything else? And so well, yeah. So I gave her the other bottle they gave me. One was for day and one was for night. And she goes, "Oh my God, they have the same side effects." And nobody knows what happens when you take these two at the same time, which I was doing, one in the day, one at night. So I took a week off work and she weaned me off of them and I never went back. That's the thing. They were giving me these psychotropes. I don't know if they do this anymore, but they weren't doing a follow-up with me to see how I'm doing. I never got a single phone call. It was like a pill mill, hey, take these pills. It wasn't even, take 2 pills and call me in the morning. It was like, take these pills and, take care. Well, they just set me, I was already suicidal and then they gave me these pills and I told you about the other part, which you don't need to get into right now, where she came out during the storm and I'm all jacked up. Yeah, that was the weird part. And the next thing you know what, I'm back in the rubber room. So anyway, go ahead, Charlie.
You mentioned mental disorder, and I think for me, it's a big reason why I hate that term, because for me growing up, there were a lot of movies in the 70s and 80s that I watched, and anybody that had had a mental disorder, they were downright insane.
Right. That's right.
So anytime I look at myself and I say I have a mental disorder, that's what I relate myself to is that the way people see me. If I tell you I have a mental disorder, do you think I'm insane? Well, I can tell you this, when I'm battling that depression, I'm not far from it, at least in my own head anyway. But that's why I think so many people, also maybe other people, feel the same way about it. And that's why people don't want to talk about it. Depression sounds a heck of a lot better than a mental disorder.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I'm not so sure, Because I hear people say, oh, I'm feeling depressed. Well, knowing what I know now, and the only reason I know what I know now is because I told you I got a degree in psychology because I was trying to figure myself out, right? So, and then going through all these, I went through the PTSD program. I've gone through, and I still see therapists for a checkup from the neck up. I don't have any problems with that. I don't have any problems telling anybody that. I think it's absolutely important that I maintain a mental stability today, because what kind of a friend am I going to be to you if I'm not doing something about it? And what kind of husband am I going to be to Shan? And what kind of father am I going to be to my kids if I'm not willing to surrender and have a maintenance program? I mean, I'm willing to go to my recovery meetings, for that. But mental disorder is an outside issue. It's not something you do in that particular recovery group of alcohol or drug related stuff. We have to go through groups that are outside issues, right? So I don't have any problems doing it today. But when I hear somebody say, well, I'm depressed, my flags go up right away, and then I'll ask some questions. I am not an armchair therapist. I'm not even going to pretend to be one. I didn't pursue it, didn't go forward. My son did, as you know, but that's his bailiwick today. It's his jam. He's a great therapist. He went into the program because as a kid, he wanted to help other people in therapy. I went through the program with no desire to be a social worker or a therapist or a shrink or anything. I needed to try and figure out what was wrong with Bob. So when I'm chatting with people and I hear the word depression come up, I think it gets thrown out there like loose change. Maybe you're having a down day, but that's not depression. You and I know what depression is. Depression is this dark cloud that seems to be demonic in some cases, where we are wrapped up in this thing and we can't get out of it, and we're crying and we're praying. And we're like, again, because of friends and education that we've gotten all sorts, we know that just like the desire for drinking, this too shall pass. We just got to hang in there with both hands on our biscuits and just wait it out and do like you and I do. We call each other. Hey, man, how you feeling? Like shit. Okay, well, let's just chat. Let's just talk, where a lot of the brothers that have, suicided and periodically we know somebody that will suicide, and we never knew. We never saw it coming, because they hid it so well. I'm not going to hide it today. I just no way. That's just not how I want to check out, as the audience had maybe, if you've heard previous episodes or what have you. My dad checked out. He was a vet. He had a lot of challenges. He never talked about it. He didn't want to talk about it. And then, he had the 1-inch gunfight and he lost. Nobody knew. Nobody saw it coming. I don't want to be that guy, because the scars that we leave behind because we think the world would be better off without us. It just makes sense. I feel like crap. I must be crap. I must be crap to you. So I think I'll do you a favor and I'll check out. That is the furthest from the truth, but it's such a lie. And that's why I say that again, I'm not trying to freak the audience out, but to me, it sounds like a demonic oppression. How in the world can we convince ourselves? How did we get to that point? We are so convinced that we're better off checking out, because it's an absolute lie.
Yes, it is. So. Well, and listening to you, Bob, it makes me realize that where we're a little bit different in that, and that is, I don't feel as much as if, excuse me again, as if the world would be better off if I were dead. What happens to me is I make some mistakes, and I guess because of my perfectionistic mindset, when I make a mistake, I feel like I'm stupid. Mm. And it snowballs from there. That's kind of where it starts. Yeah. It's a stupid snowball, and it just starts rolling down the hill, and it's just getting bigger. And then it's I'm not even going to talk or say the type of words. I'm not going to go there because it's so vulgar and so mean-spirited. I'm not even going to say it, but just know the worst things that you would say to yourself, or maybe not even that. Probably for most people, probably it's the worst things that they would ever say to anybody else that they hated with all their guts is what blurts out of my mind and out of my mouth about myself. But see, the thing about me is I know, because I'm wise enough to know that those are lies.
That's right.
And so, but it doesn't mean I still don't feel feel
That's
it.
right. Yeah.
I feel it very intently. And like this one I went through just a few weeks ago. So since Christmas, I have, and now it's the middle of March, I've went through 2 really deep bouts of depression. And the one back at Christmas time, I just, I didn't, this is what I was saying to myself. And I said to a couple other people, I don't want to hurt the people I love, but I don't want to live.
Right.
And that the people that I love, and it's not so much that I love them. Matter of fact, I said that wrong. What I said was, I don't want to hurt the people that love me. Because see, I know that most people in my life love me. I have grandkids that treat me like a king. I have a wife that treats me like a king. I have employees that tell me on a regular basis how much they love me. I have friends that don't hesitate to tell me how much they love me. You know, I don't have to coax them. They just come up and say it, you know, and tell me how grateful they are that I'm in their life, you know. So I know that these people care a lot about me. And so I had this question today. If people in my life love me so much, how come I can't love myself?
Good question.
And so, you know, I just, when I get into that depression, I just don't want to live anymore.
Right.
It's not because I feel like the world would be better off without me, because I really know it wouldn't. I just don't want to be here no more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of hard to try to even explain it. And when, you know, and God bless people that are trying to help us because they don't get it and they want to fix us. And it's not that it's embarrassing that they're trying to fix us. It's that they're hurt because they can't help us.
Yeah.
And, you know, my wife and I have been together long enough now that when I get in those situations, those feelings, she just knows, well, first of all, we dialogue it, and that's fair. Like, hey, this isn't anything to do with you. It is me. I'm having an episode. And it's like, cool, do what you got to do from her perspective, right? Do what you got to do. And she lets me just do what I got to do. And most of the time it's not isolate anymore, because that used to be my go-to, was I would isolate. And I do take like you had mentioned, going for some hikes the other day, and you had discovered some new trails. That is my go-to to do my communication with my higher power, right? You know, and I'll get out there and I'll talk and just get it out. And I'm not saying that's a solvent, but I know that I can't go and do that for weeks at a time. I just know that inherently, not because of, you know, all the training, I guess, or experiences that I've had or things that I've learned. So that I got to get back to reality. Okay, I've got to fight through this. And so I force myself. It's almost like, you know, I work out every day. I have to, not a day goes by, bro, that I don't have to, I have to fight to go work out. I hate working. I don't mind rucking, but man, I hate working out. And that is the same thing with the depression. I don't want to do what I know I need to do. In fact, Paul says it in Romans, right? I don't do the things I'm supposed to do, and I do the things I'm not supposed to do, you know? And I'm like, dude, I totally get you. And earlier later in Corinthians, when he talks about, and I've used this so many times, I don't know how many episodes, the thorn in his side, the mysterious thorn in his side that we don't know anything about. That one, I identify with that a lot too, because he doesn't say what he's going to God about to take away this issue. He doesn't give it a specific name. And then later on, though, this was his answer or his tool. It's like, I get it. And I don't know if this is true for me or not, but I take it. I'll take what I'm about to tell you. He says, God, I asked God 3 times to take this away, and he didn't. Now, of course, my first thought is, why only 3 times? Well, because Paul was smarter than me. He realized after the 3rd time there wasn't no use asking, because he realized that God didn't take away whatever that affliction was, because if he did, then as Paul says, he wouldn't need God. And I'm thinking, well, that makes sense. I don't want to get in a position where I ever think I don't need my higher power. So, okay, so if I'm going to have this label that we've called it for the rest of my life. Okay, I'll take that. But here's what I've definitely got to do. I have to go to my higher power on it, and I have to be immersed in my recovery program. And you already know, and I say it on so many episodes, if not, the beginning, but somewhere during the show, remap, reading, exercise, meditation, anonymous works, service works for people where possible, and of course, prayer. That does not for a moment mean at the end of any of those or my remap session that I'm like, hear the angels sing and I'm cured. It doesn't. But what it does is it keeps me from, remember the old days when we'd lay on the floor and just suck our thumbs and cry and like, why are we alive today? It keeps me from getting that far down because I used to get really far down. And now I just get down. But I don't stay down near as much as I used to. And, one of the other tools, and again, I don't want to be hijacking this thing, that we learned in the program was that gratitude list. Because I had a chat with Diane some time ago, Diane's missives from the podcast. When she asked me to talk on the subject of gratitude, I was so honest because this is years ago, but it was like, that is my worst subject. So no, I don't want to talk about gratitude. Not trying to bum anybody out, but that is nowhere near the top of my vernacular. So I'm going to pass. And I felt bad because I think I was being kind of a, borderline banana, I didn't have to address it that way. But I realized later that I had an animosity towards the word gratitude. And I was like, that's written space in my head. Maybe I need to look at it. Very similar when Dan, I did a show on joy. Dan had brought up the topic of joy and wanted me to talk on it. And I was like, absolutely not. Again, this is some time ago, but it was like, that's a weird word to me. I don't identify with it. And because of my response and it renting space in my head, I had to take a hard look at it instead of just dismissing it. If something is renting space in my head and bouncing around between the 6 inches of my ears, I need to look at it. And today I know that, but I wouldn't have known that if I weren't, in a recovery program where people say, if something's renting space in your head, that means you need to take a look at it. And so now I make a gratitude list. I look at every day. I have a specific order that's, private to me of what I give gratitude for. And also in that gratitude list is my prayers. Somebody will share something with me and I'll put them on my prayer list and then I'll check them with them. I'm not trying to get in their business or their life, but, I'll just randomly say, hey, man, what's going on? You shared XYZ, everything cool. And if it's not, maybe I'll keep them on the list. I don't know. I let the spirit guide that whole prayer thing, man. That's an individual personal thing between us and our higher power. So is meditation. But there's things I do to mitigate getting out of my head. Like what we hear, I forgot who said it. I can't fix the stuff in my head with the stuff in my head. Right. So there's things I have to do today and, so I can work through these. And I said to you this yesterday or the day before. I don't remember when we talked about this, but there's a difference between a medical doctor and our higher power. We're all, patients, right, to a doctor. And he's going to use what he knows in his medical training and experience, and so sometimes it's a cookie cut thing. Oh, you got a cold? Take this, you got COVID, you need a shot, whatever. But our higher power, he's not doing a practice with us. He knows specifically what we need. And if I really meditate on that, again, I might get some, I might not even like the answers, but there's a sense of serenity, a sense of peace by building that relationship with my higher power and really trying. It's not easy because one of my challenges is lack of humility and fighting with my ego. That is, I don't hide that from anybody. So I sometimes hear or I feel something from my higher power and I want to dismiss it. Nah, I don't want to go down that road. No, I don't want to do that. And if I don't, then I feel miserable. But if I do what I feel I'm led to do, then I'm not saying it's a cure-all, brother, but it does make me feel like, okay, I'm not as low, so low that I feel like I'm going to get sucked up by a vacuum cleaner, Anyway.
Well, it just came to my mind. I want to share this line with you today. And I know I've said it to you before, Bob, and it's one of the most important things that I've heard that help me with recognizing what the cause of the depression is, where it stems from. And that line is the American Psychiatric Council released this statement. And that statement is, there is no technical difference in being miserable and thinking about yourself. And so when I heard
that came out from the APA?
Yes.
That's good.
So when I heard that, it was quoted by somebody that's a very intelligent person. And so,
Charlie, I'm sorry. There's no technical difference between being miserable and thinking about yourself.
Exactly.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
And so when he said that, and it touched my heart, so I had to start playing it out. How does that affect? How does that relate to me, or how do I relate to that?
Yeah.
And I started thinking, and I noticed that every time I am miserable, who do you think I'm thinking about?
Well, it's not me, I hope. No, I
it's me. I'm the only. So every bout of depression that I have ever had, the only person I'm thinking about is me. And so it helped me several times when I would start to get depressed. I'd say, look, you're the only person you're thinking. I'd look at the situation and I could plainly see I ain't thinking about nobody but me. And I could say, okay, what do you want to do? How do you get out of this? Go be of service to somebody. Go try to help somebody else. Do whatever you got to do to get out of me. And that helps. What's disappointing to me about myself is I have made this decision several times recently that I was triggered and I sensed the depression coming, and I thought about that statement and I knew it to be true. And I made a conscious decision not to do anything about it.
Mm.
And I'm sitting one particular instance, I'm standing in my garage and I'm telling myself, you're being selfish. You're the only person you're thinking about. You have a choice. Do you want to do something and go be of service to somebody else and maybe get out of this frame of mind? Or do you want to go down that dark road? And I chose to go down the dark road.
Wow.
And I chose to stay there for days.
Oh, my.
And why would I do that? That's the baffling part to me about depression. It's as if I get a sense of ease and comfort out of it. I actually do. It's not as if I do. I do. I get a sense of comfort. It's almost like I'm wrapped in a blanket in my mother's womb. But I'm miserable. I'm hating life. I'm hating everything about it. I can't stand to see people. I can't answer the phone. I can't walk into a gas station to get a soft drink. I can't be around anybody. So my life is miserable, but I'm comfortable. And it makes no sense to me, but it is what it is.
I wish I knew where this was. I'm looking at my quotes. I collect quotes, of which there's so many Charlie quotes in here. Oh, darn it. Redbeard said something like, chaos is like a warm blanket. I'm totally messing that up, but depression is like a warm blanket too.
It is.
Isn't that weird? Yeah. What's even weirder, it's not in the same, category, is when somebody cares so much that they're not only trying to fix us, but they're telling us or comfort us, but they're trying to fix us. It's like, stop, you're making it worse. I don't know of a good example right now, but when somebody is an armchair, psychiatrist and they try to go Freud on me, that's another reason that I don't like to, share when I'm going through those things. And I'm saying this for the audience. If you run across a loved one or a friend or something that is going through depression, please don't try to fix them. Just listen to them. The only time you really need to get involved is if, they're really talking suicide, and that's a completely different category for an episode in the future. I've got plans to have some guests on here that are involved in that arena. But when it comes to suicide, well, that's a game changer. It's very different. But depression in itself, man, just either sit with them, or if they say they want to be alone, let them be alone. But it's okay to ask them, are you thinking of killing yourself? And I put that out there. It's going to be on another episode. But that's really important because hopefully they'll be honest with you and say yes or no. If yes, that's for an episode forthcoming. If it's no, then your next question could be, can I just sit with you? If they say no, then give them space. If they say yes, then be with them. But please don't try to fix them. Just be there. Be a comfort blanket, but don't try to fix them.
That's great advice, Bob, because I know when I've been in those situations, that's the only thing that really would have helped is just somebody being there. You know, just be a friend. That's all. I don't need you to try to fix me because there's not a thing you can say or do that's going to make me feel any better. It's an inside job, and external circumstances are not going to fix it. You know, and there's another statement that a very wise woman said one time, and I can never forget this. And I've made this statement, and you particular, Bob, said you disagreed with it, but probably because I didn't say it or maybe didn't get explained very well. I didn't say it properly. And the statement she made was, if it comes down to a drink or a bullet, take the drink.
Why would I disagree with that?
I don't know, but somebody else said I disagree, and you said I do too. So.
I must have misunderstood you because I'd be like, take the drink, man.
Exactly. You know, hey, and that's something that, you know, so we're going to be honest here. When that other person disagreed and you disagreed, I have never forgotten that moment because I'm thinking, you know.
And I don't remember it.
Yeah, you don't even remember it because my feelings were hurt to the degree that you think I'm stupid. To be honest.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's where it went with me, you know, but I knew that you just didn't receive it the way it was intended to be received. You know, you didn't hear me properly or who knows what happened, because now you understand that statement completely. Yeah. And there's no way you would disagree with it.
No.
But that's how things are in my head, you know, and things like that. They can take me south in a heartbeat. Now that time didn't, but I had to be honest with you. I was scarred by that, you know? So we got it out in the open today, but let's get back to that subject because, you know, it is important that if it comes down to a drink or a bullet that you take a drink. And why is that? Because some people may be going, oh, for no reason at all should you drink. Well, if you take the bullet, you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
If you take a drink, you got a chance, you know?
Yeah.
And I've worked with some people, you know, in recovery that took the bullet.
Yeah. Yeah. And we hear those stories, man, it slays me. That's an interesting, I mean, my first response obviously was take the drink, but I'm going to stand by that. If that is the absolute only options, take the drink. But I would hope that doesn't come to that. But again, it's not something that, I want to deep dive. I agree with you. If that's your only options, take the drink. But my goodness, I hope you would pick up the phone. But I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I'm glad
you shared that because it opens up a topic that means a lot to me, you know. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because of these 2 recent bouts of depression. You know, when I got in recovery, and I was thinking about a drink, it was not a problem to pick up the phone and call my sponsor after I finally did it. Now, until I did it the first time, it was a hard thing to do because I went 6 months in this program before I didn't have to pick up a drink. But once I did call my sponsor, then any other time I had the thought of a drink, it wasn't a problem to pick up the phone and call my sponsor or anybody and say, hey, man, I'm just thinking about it, you know, shit, you know. But with depression, it's the same remedy, but I won't pick up the phone.
Right. I totally identify with that. I don't know why, but I can identify with that. I just don't know why we struggle like that.
For me, I even do another step forward. Another step worse than that is I won't pick up the phone. I won't get on my knees and say my prayers. I won't read my literature. I won't do my meditation. It's just like I turn my back and run from my support and my ability to overcome the depression, and I get as far away from the cure as I can because I don't want it.
Right.
It's that warm blanket. I'm not taking my blanket. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I was I'm not sure how long ago it was I had, well, I call them episodes, so when I'm checking out, and of course, the gatekeepers, in the house is the wife. And it wasn't long ago when I had it was over a weekend where I just, I kind of bailed on everything. But I will confess that if it gets so bad that it's reaching the I hate to say it, but it's a fact. If I feel that I'm heading towards this depression that is so deep that I'm afraid that somebody needs to come get my guns, then I will absolutely reach out. And it's a flagging mechanism now that's thank God is built in now. But I still hit those episodes where I tell myself and I convince myself, I know this is going to pass. It's okay. I'm checking out. I don't answer the phone. I don't check text. In fact, I turn the phone off. But the gatekeeper here, Shannon, she'll like, okay, where you at? And I'm like, oh, I just need some space, man. She's like, that's cool. But she does a regular check-in. She doesn't try to fix me. We're past that because we know it doesn't work. But it's respect. I don't know why I get them. We don't know why I get them, but I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do in the program. So it's a lot better today than it was, some time ago when I got locked up. She wasn't, and she'll tell you this herself. She wasn't afraid for her life. She just literally thought I was going to take mine. And so the next thing you know it, and you've heard the story before, I woke up in the madhouse. I'm like, okay, this is really bad. I'm not coming back here again. So what do I got to do to lie, to get out of this? And then I wasn't willing to deal with it until, until I like we shared earlier, that it was okay to surrender. And that wasn't easy to do. But now, man, I don't even care anymore. Again, it's situational. I'm not going to go up there with a megaphone, and thank God this is an anonymous program because, very few people that, the people that know me that do the podcast, that's one thing, but our audience is large enough that they don't know who I am, because I don't want to go up to a perfect stranger and just say, hey, man, I'm feeling depressed today. I can do that freely with you and the tribe and my wife, but that's one of the reasons we don't go video. And it's one of the reasons that we don't just advertise who we are. I'm not comfortable with that, but I am comfortable with people that I've built a trust with, because I don't want to continue to drive down that road in my mind, that's always going to end up at a brick wall. It's inevitable. I did want to ask you another question. We're kind of nearing the hour mark, so I want to make sure that we hit some topics that are on your mind that you want to put out there before we get into the closing. You had said something at the beginning of the show that I made a note on, and I'm just curious about it because I hear this, and you brought it up. You at your 2-year mark, you had the anniversary blues. I hear that from people. Why do you think that is? I'm just curious. I've never even talked to anybody about this before, but I hear from I'm hitting my anniversary. I've got these concerns, and I've never thought about it until you said it. What do you think that's about?
Well, right now, the first thought that comes to my mind is that, in those first 2 years of sobriety, my life was getting better at a very rapid rate. Things were the pieces of the puzzle were being put back together, and things were getting good really fast and often. And then maybe around that 2-year mark, they kind of leveled off, and I'm the type of guy that, and I think that's what made me an addict and an alcoholic is I love instant gratification, and I need a boost of something that makes me feel good, whether it's life or a drug. And when that sense of feeling good and that sense of accomplishment and well-being is leveling off, and I'm not getting that instant gratification like I've been getting it, for me, as I've said, Charlie, I'm like a plant. I'm either growing or I'm dying.
That's right.
Spiritually.
Yeah.
And so I guess at that 2-year mark, I stopped growing so much. And even though I might not have been dying because I was still working a solid program, things were still getting better, but it wasn't getting better at the rate that it was for those first 2 years.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was dying.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you ever get anniversary blues now?
No.
Okay.
And now because I changed my sobriety date about 5 years ago because I smoked some weed.
Oh, that's right.
I'm embarrassed about that. I really hide from my anniversary date now, because in theory I should have, 15 years of sobriety, and in reality I have 5, and then I look at my life today as really how much sobriety do I have?
Yeah.
If a week ago I had to take my pistol out of my pocket and empty it and put it somewhere and hide it from me because I was afraid to have it on my person. Because I was afraid how I might react.
Oh.
So how much sobriety do I really have? See, to me today,
interesting.
It's not about physical sobriety today. It's about emotional sobriety. And if I don't have emotional sobriety, I don't feel like I'm sober.
Okay. And you know what? That's cool. That is your choice. I mean, I love it. And you've heard me say it before, I've almost got, 40 years of sobriety, just not at the same time, and I'm grateful. I never thought I would be, because when I came back in the program, I was like, after having over a couple of decades of sobriety and then going out and coming back in, it was a pride issue, and along the lines of what you said earlier, kind of made me think about the misery, what the APA say, being miserable and thinking about yourself, there's, no difference, right? So I was thinking, the old joke is, I'm not much, but I'm all I think about, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
There's my ego,
yeah.
Right? And so, of course, I deal with this depression challenge. But I guess the point I wanted to make was that coming back in the program, knowing all these things now that I learned while I was unfortunately drinking, and all the things that I wasn't doing in my first round of sobriety, when I hear people almost boast about the years that they have, it makes me think, and you just said it made me think, well, your emotional sobriety is way off. You don't even have a day, bro. So I was glad you said that, because I run into so many folks and I almost feel like they're like, page 125 in the 12 by 12 talks about the bleeding deacon and the elder statesman. So I see a lot of bleeding deacons, and I'm like, I am so glad when I hear that, because I was a bleeding deacon. And I'm like, I feel now that I'm borderline elder statesman, but I still got some growing to do, because I'll judge somebody in a heartbeat, so my emotional sobriety isn't always like right up there on target. So, hey, we're going to move into wrap up here. So what I'd like you to do is talk to the audience, directly about what you would say worked for you. Some of these things we already said, but that way we come like full circle and maybe close the loop on some tools, some suggestions, and then I'll say a couple things and we'll wrap up.
Okay,
cool.
Gonna take a break first?
Yeah, I'm all about that. Hey, Danny. All right. We're back. It's Bob and Charlie. We're just doing a chat on the subject of depression, and we're going to move into wrap up. So Charlie's going to share his thoughts with us, and then we'll wrap up from there. I might throw a couple bones in there. I don't know if they're worth it or not. You'd probably hear more from Danny than you would me, wouldn't you? Go ahead, Charlie.
All right. I want to start by saying that, when you asked me to wrap it up and to give my thoughts, this discomfort starts welling up inside of me. And whatever it is I'm about to say, I have no idea. I can tell you it ain't easy. It's not easy because I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be vulnerable. And it may help somebody, it may not. But I don't deserve to treat myself the way I treat myself sometimes. And probably 95% of the time, I don't go through this. I'm not somebody that deals with depression all the time. But when it hits hard. And it's deep and it's severe. And it seems to be getting worse as I'm getting older. And I've learned things to do to overcome it, or to at least give me some relief for a period of time till I can get past that moment. And I've learned ways to make it worse. And I never know which way I'm going to go when it starts to happen. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about how it can be. And I'm going to share what I can do. And I'm going to share some of the things that happen when I have a positive reaction to what happens. So the most recent one, a week ago, the worst one maybe each time it happens, it feels like it's the worst one. I don't know which one's the worst one. All I know is that last week I was living in hell. And it was all in my mind, because if you look at my surroundings, there's nothing to justify what I put myself through. There's nothing going on in my life that should cause me to treat myself the way that I did. And it was triggered by a simple little statement, but I know for a fact that it has nothing to do with what was said or anything. It's an inside job. It's how I reacted to that situation. And the person that triggered me is not at fault, because if that person could probably say that again today, and it probably wouldn't trigger that, but it did in that moment. So it was a perfect storm, as you will, of things where I was emotionally, spiritually, physically, all these things combined. And it was like it was the right time to push that button. And I went south. And I isolated more than I ever have in my life. I'm leaving my home as early as I can in the morning, and I'm coming back as late as I can in the evening. And I'm lying, and I'm smoking weed, and I'm treating myself like shit, and I can't stop. Within a short period of time after my button was pushed. And I'm walking around out in the woods, and I'm saying things to myself that are so mean that there's never been a person in my life, that even people that I hated, I never talked to like this. And I'm saying these things to myself, and I can't stop. I'm out in the woods, and I'm saying these things, and a few times I just stopped because I found myself getting so loud and getting so violent with myself. I stop and I look around like, can anybody see me? Can anybody hear me? Because if they can, they think I'm crazy. I can't stop doing it. Day after day after day. Hundreds of times a day, I'm cussing myself. I'm talking bad to myself. I'm thinking about what life would be like if I just checked out. What the only thing that keeps me from checking out is the people that love me. That's the only thing. If I didn't have the people in my life that I know that love me, the chances of me being here would be a lot slimmer. But fortunately, I do. And so I'm doing that, and I just can't get away from it. And finally, it's after several days, it starts to lift a little bit, and I can finally breathe, and I can finally start to talk to somebody, because I'm isolating like I'm doing. I can't even go to a convenience store and walk in and buy something to drink, and I'm dying of thirst because I can't stand to be even in the presence of somebody that works at a convenience store. I can't take phone calls. I can't make phone calls. I can't stand to be around anybody, not even myself. This particular time, I didn't even make a decision to do that. There have been times that I've made a conscious decision to allow the depression to come on. Like we said earlier, it's almost like it's a warm blanket. But it's also kind of, I think maybe a different way to describe it. It's a warm blanket full of razor blades.
Wow.
It feels good, but it's cutting me apart.
Wow.
But once I got past that deepest, darkest spot and I could start to talk to somebody, I started getting relief. And little by little, the more I would talk, the more relief I would get. And that's absolutely true. And it took days to get completely out of it. I was several days away from that darkest place. And I was telling people, I'm still not out of the woods. I'm still there. It's still happening. Out of nowhere, these intrusive thoughts come and I verbalize them instantly. It's like it's almost like I don't even have a chance to think about it. It's just, bam, you stupid son of a bitch. And I promise you, the way I just said it is nothing like I say it to myself. So, I've learned that if I reach out, that's going to help a lot. But what's so confusing is I'm not willing to do that. I don't want to do it. I want to stay there. I want to live in that. To be honest, I want y'all to know I'm hurting. I want y'all to know I'm dying, but I don't want to tell you. I want your help, but I'm not going to ask for it. I need your help, but I'm not going to accept it. And that's what this past week and a half was like for me, briefly. But I've learned over the years, fighting this as long as I have. I've taken medication from psychiatrists, and I just don't want to do that anymore because it didn't help. It made me feel worse, and I don't believe that's my solution. I believe my solution is 100% a spiritual solution to a spiritual malady. You can ask me, and I had this conversation today, and I don't want to sound like some weirdo here, but this is just where I'm at. I'm not, I absolutely believe in God, and I do believe that if there is a God, and in my mind there is, that there is an equal and the opposite, which means there's the devil, the enemy, as I choose to call him. I believe that the enemy is afraid of me, afraid of where I'm going with my life. And I've been trying to battle him on my own because I'm so spiritual and I'm no match. I almost feel like, and I've been talking to people recently, do I need some type of deliverance? Do I have a demonic spirit inside of me? What else would treat me the way I treat me? I don't know if it is or not. It's just one of my ways I'm trying to find a solution. I know that God wouldn't treat me that way. And I know the more that I build on my relationship with him, the better off I'll be. But that's another thing that I was doing is I wasn't praying. When I got into that dark spot, I did not pick up my literature. I did not pick up my Bible. I did not get on my knees. I did not call anybody that I'd usually talk to that helps me in my spiritual life. I didn't do any of that because I know it works. And I don't want to get out of that when I'm there. So, that's the dark part of it, man. But I have learned a lot over the years. And I do know that I do have a choice of whether or not I allow myself to go to that dark, dark place. I do have a choice. Sometimes I choose not to. And when I choose not to, and in that moment, the thing with me is I've learned too, I don't have a lot of opportunities to make the decision of which way I'm going to go. I have one moment, like I did in my garage that day not long ago. I have a moment, and I told myself, you can go into the light or you can go into the darkness. And once I take a step either way, or especially, let me say it this way, once I take a step into the darkness, it almost feels like I have no way of coming back. Mm-hmm. But once I take a step into the light, I can keep going more and more into the light, and the darkness gets dimmer and dimmer, and I don't have to go down that road. And I don't have to put the people through the things that I put them through, the people that love me. That's right. I got a grandson that's asking me, what's wrong with you, Papa? He doesn't understand. I don't understand. I don't want to do it again, but I can't promise you I won't. That's why I'm here tonight, to put light on the darkness, to expose the lies to the truth. So maybe I don't have to do it again. Maybe I can help somebody else. Maybe I can help somebody if they don't have to do what I've been doing. Maybe I give them a little bit of hope. Because when I am in that dark place, I am hopeless. And the only thing that brings me out is hope. And so that's the short version. Long version takes years to explain, and I can't even explain it. I wish I could. I wish I could say, when I see people dealing with depression, I wish I could say the thing that they need to hear that makes them overcome it. But I can't. And the flip side of that is nobody else can say what I need to hear to make me overcome it. Maybe, no, not maybe. I absolutely believe that the only person that can deliver me from my depression is God. And for some reason, I still have a disconnect between he and I that disables him from helping me. Maybe it's not that I'm disabling him. Maybe he's still teaching me. Too much is given, much is expected. The more I learn, the more I can teach. And I'm learning a lot. And it's tough lessons. Homework's hard. Thanks for letting me share, Pop.
Brother, I love you. I love you. And I would tell the audience, This is not the episode to get your solution, because we all have our individual battles, every single one of us. But what we do have is each other, as we seek an answer. Hey, Danny. Okay, you got something to say? Here. That's a trip. If I didn't have you guys, as I've said earlier, I don't know where I'd be. I don't know where I'd be without Shannon. She has stuck by me through some of the most craziest times, and I've gotten through them. The only thing I can say is I totally agree with you on a lot of stuff, but two that really resonate. One is it's okay to realize that you have this affliction and surrender. And of course, what you and I definitely have in common is a relationship with our higher power. And I just say, hey man, that's it. That's really all I got. I'm not adverse to therapy. It's really, I wouldn't say it saved my life. I'd say that God saved my life. But one of the tools he put in my life, besides the tribe and besides my wife, is therapy. And, I've learned to deal with a lot of stuff. So, the depression doesn't go away, but at least I have some tools to deal with it. And since I've been doing these things, Shannon and Daisy joined us at break. So I don't know. I'm not asking to get on the microphone, Shannon. We don't want to hear from you. But you can nod that I think I've gotten better over the years, huh? Just nod. Don't shake. You silly girl. So anyway, folks, that's bringing us to a wrap up. But I don't just want to end without saying, Daisy, I have something for you. But before I get there, no, really. So Shannon and I, we went out to eat. We went to, what was it? Texas Roadhouse, right? Yeah. Man, are you going to give me any kind of acknowledgement that you're there? Oh, you're shaking your head now. No, that's called a nod. So, the manager just randomly came over and just said, hey, how's it going? And she was so bubbly. I just wanted to reach out and give her a hug, like, oh, I like you. So we got to chatting. And then Shannon and I were sharing with her, that we do this podcast. And she left and came back. And, oh, where is it? Hold on a sec. I'm there. She gave me a dinner for two. And I thought, maybe you would want to take me to dinner with you, Daisy, or your husband. So,
yeah, I think that was coming.
Wait, so you're going to take Shannon?
Yeah.
So I want to give a big shout out to Texas Roadhouse, not just for having fantastic food, because we absolutely love their food, but because, everybody was so I think our waitress name was Kennedy. I hope I'm not diming her out, but she was just really awesome. And then the manager, and then the busboy's cleaning the table next to us, and he's all happy. I'm like, well, what's in your guys' water over here? So, Shannon needs some of that. Did you spread the happiness? I mean, okay, I'm going to get slapped for that one. So anyway, dinner for two. Okay. Don't leave without it. And a big, shout out to, Texas. And I got to tell you, it really blessed me that they did that. We didn't really expect it. So for them to support the show, and they wrote right on there, shout out from the pit. So I'm like, that's awesome that they would, support our show in that way. And Charlie, actually I have something for you.
Sweet.
So this is, TCC is Ty and Crystal Communications. They are involved in so much stuff. I can't begin to tell you all the stuff they do. Estate sales. He travels and he's a musician, so they fly him all over the place. He does computer repairs, and what else does he do? Laser engraving. This is a mug for you. What else does he do? He and Crystal. They do everything. They're amazing. So, but I want to give them a huge shout out because, they're supporting the show with this. I could not afford to buy it because we don't, as you know, we don't have a return on investment on the show. All the money that goes into donations helps to pay for the platform fees, upgrade technologies, business cards, and stuff like that. But Ty and Crystal made you a mug.
Oh, it's got my name on it.
It's got your name on it.
Stanley mug with my name on it.
Yeah, it's got.
Shout out to the pit on the back.
Yeah. There you go.
It's really.
Hey, Shannon, go ahead and give him the box and the straw.
That is the second best gift I've ever received in my life.
That's nice.
Daisy's the first.
Oh, that was good. Shannon, can you give this to Daisy? So, everybody has a regret, but I have to tell you and Daisy, one of my largest regrets. Daisy, I was in Texas when you guys got married, and I hated that because Charlie was like, hey, I'm getting married. I want you to come. And I was like, I'm not going to be here. And it tore me up. So next time you guys have a reunion wedding or something like that, I won't miss it. I'll make sure that I make some. Just don't do it when my granddaughter Freudian slip, right? Granddaughter arrives. We got our first grandkid coming in August. Yeah, they saved us some money. We were getting ready to buy them a how-to book. It's like, what's taking you guys so long? So they figured it out. They're having a child, thank God. So anyway, that's it. That's a wrap on today's show. And folks, I'm blessed. Charlie, you blessed me. Thank you for coming out. Daisy, thanks for hanging out with Shannon up there. I'm sure you guys solved all the world's problems while we were down here trying to do our share. Okay. All right, folks, leave your thoughts and comments on shoutitfromthepit.com. And remember, if you want to feel good about yourself, I love how you made that comment earlier, Charlie, about just going out and getting out of your head and doing stuff for people. Go out and do something for someone else. And based on what we talked about in this episode, you may literally be the difference between life and death for a hurting brother or sister. And finally, as always, you're not alone. If no one's told you they love you today, we love you. God bless you and have an outstanding American day. This is Bob the Old Rucker. Peace out.